Friends, accounting services begin after obtaining a residence permit. Why? Because in order to start accounting services, the company director needs to be brought to the tax office. That's why you need a residence permit and a tax identification number, which is assigned after receiving the residence permit. Please note, even though accounting services begin after obtaining a residence permit, taxes on the director's salary are paid from the moment the company is established. Also, all reporting is submitted from the moment the company is established. This means that at the minimum, from the moment the company is established, all payroll reports must be submitted not only for the month of establishment, but also for the following months. And if the company was established not this year, but in the previous year, then an additional package of annual reports must also be submitted. Some accountants say that reporting should be submitted not from the moment the company is established, but from the moment you receive your residence permit. This information is not accurate. Accounting services begin sequentially after completing the following procedures. First, you need to sign a contract with your accountant. Second, you need to sign a contract between the company director and your company. In other words, essentially, you are signing a contract with yourself. You need to issue a work record book. We prepare it for all our clients, although some accountants do not in order to reduce their workload. You should know that the work record book is necessary for tracking your pensionable service. You need to prepare a large set of documents to open a company account and a personal account. Even if your company will not be conducting any business activities, a company account is necessary so that taxes, the director's salary, and the accountant's fees can be paid from it. And a personal account is needed in order to receive this salary. Many accountants do not pay the director's salary, again, in order to reduce their workload. For example, for a company with 200 clients, that is, if your accounting firm serves 200 clients in order to pay salaries to everyone, you need to process more than 400 documents and then also enter all of them into the accounting software. This is an enormous amount of work, but you could simply not do this. You should know that for non-payment of salaries, your company can be fined up to 22,000 euros. And according to the labor law, salaries must be paid exclusively from the company's account to the employee's account at least once a month. That is, in this case, the employee is the company's director. No other forms of salary payment are provided for by Montenegrin legislation. Therefore, make sure to request that your salary is paid strictly from the company's account to the employee's account. Next, the company's director needs to be registered with the tax office. You need to submit a power of attorney for your chosen accountant to the tax office. You need to provide the company's account number to the tax office. If your company will be conducting real business activities, you will also need to connect crystallization in order to be able to accept payments. In general, although I'm explaining all this in just 2 minutes, in reality, there is a whole stack of documents being prepared, which are then submitted to various authorities. Yes, we operate throughout the entire territory of Montenegro. This is possible because reports are submitted electronically. Accordingly, the location of the company doesn't matter to us at all. We work with all regions. Let's get back to the documents. After the preparatory stage has been successfully completed, it's time to start submitting the reports. Your accountant will be submitting the following reports. Some of them are required for all companies, while others are not. It depends on whether the company is operating, not operating, and how it is operating. At the minimum, the following reports will be required. The payroll report must be submitted by the 15th day of each month following the reporting month. For example, in June, you submit the report for May, meaning the report for the previous month must be submitted by June 15th. The VAT report must be submitted by the 15th day of each month, provided that your company is a VAT payer. The majority of Russian companies in Montenegro are established solely for the purpose of obtaining a residence permit. They do not conduct any business activities and accordingly are not VAT payers. But if a company is established for the purpose of conducting a real business, and there are such companies, probably, I don't know how many, maybe about 10% actually run real businesses, and most of them will sooner or later become VAT payers. And accordingly, this report must be submitted. The annual reporting package is submitted by the end of the first quarter, meaning you file the report for the previous year by the end of March. The report to the pension fund in most cities in Montenegro, to be honest, this is not a particularly complicated report. A good accounting program, especially our accounting program, generates this report automatically. That is, it pulls the necessary documents, prints them out, and there are no issues. But Only in Herseg Novi, in addition to the required set of documents, they also demand additional documents. As a result, this seemingly simple report turns into a major headache. This year, in order to submit it, we literally printed out 4 boxes of paper. Not 4 packs, but 4 boxes. Each of those boxes contains 5 or 6 packs of paper. So in Herseg Novi, this is a massive report. Moving on. Now, where was I? The report to the pension fund. In some cases, there are also additional reports, but above are the main reports, which not everyone has, but most companies do. Aside from VAT, everything else I mentioned applies to all companies. VAT is for those who are operating. And in some cases, there may be additional reporting requirements. So tax payment deadlines. Payroll taxes must be paid by the 15th of each month. For some reason, many people constantly miss these deadlines, but they shouldn't. A penalty is charged for missing these deadlines. Moreover, it calculates clearly, and I assume that it is calculated automatic. That's that. Well, most deadlines are observed. Everyone knows that payment must be made by the 15th. Most people, in principle, do just that. But in every accounting agency, there is always a certain number of clients, just a few, maybe 5, 6, or 8 people who, for some reason, are always forgetting, oversleeping, or leaving early without thinking. And they constantly miss these deadlines and keep paying these penalties. Of course, you shouldn't do this. Next, VAT is paid within the same deadlines as payroll taxes, that is by the 15th of each month. Corporate income tax and dividend tax are paid once a year by the end of the first quarter. Now, let's talk about taxes. The taxes in Montenegro are as follows. Well, I'll cover the main ones, obviously. I won't talk about absolutely all of them, like excise taxes, customs duties, things like that. We won't touch on those. We'll talk about the main taxes. Payroll taxes are differentiated. They vary each time. The higher the salary, the higher the tax. That's probably fair to some extent. Taxes on the minimum wage in Montenegro. Minimum wage for full-time employment is 450 euros. The taxes on that salary are almost 116 euros. If you want to dive deeper into the topic of how much you'll pay with different salaries, we have a detailed video on our channel that shows the salary calculation algorithm. You can watch it and enter any amount into this algorithm. For example, say you want to earn a salary of 5,000 per month. No problem. Just enter that amount and calculate how much the taxes will be on a salary of 5,000 euros. Pay attention to the following. Your salary must not be lower than the amount you specified in the MUP when applying for a residence permit. Many Russians lower this amount after obtaining a residence permit. In other words, they receive the residence permit by guaranteeing they would earn a certain salary. Once they get the residence permit, they relax and pay much less. Accordingly, a lower salary means less tax paid on it. In theory, this could lead to problems in the future. Whether it will or not, I don't know. But such a mechanism is provided for in the legislation. It can indeed lead to problems. I advise everyone to pay themselves the correct salary, meaning the one you indicated in the map or higher. But keep in mind, even though I believe you should pay yourself the correct salary to avoid potential problems in the future, we don't do anything shady for anyone. If someone comes to us for service and says they want to hire themselves at their own company for a quarter-time position and pay several times less in taxes than what is required by the current legislation in the country, we will refuse them such a position. I'm explaining all these rules for one reason only. So that 3 years from now, someone doesn't come to me and say, you didn't tell me about this 3 years ago, and now look, I'm having all these problems because of you. And I'll tell them, no, my friend, I told this to everyone. By the way, this isn't just about the video. When someone comes to me for accounting services, I give them a detailed set of instructions. I say, here's everything you need to know. In other words, I give this to everyone in writing so that no one can later say, I didn't warn them about something. And one more point, related to the salary amount specifically, the rate at which you are employed, what determines the size of your salary and what determines the tax on your salary. Please note, in order to receive a pension in the future, you need to have worked in Montenegro for at least 15 years at a full rate, or 30 years at half rate, or 60 years at a quarter rate. I think that for most of you, the vast majority working for 15 years definitely won't be a problem. And maybe some of you could even work for 30 years. But as for 60 years, definitely none of you will work that long. So if you want to receive a pension in the future, once again, make sure you are employed at a full rate. That In most cases, VAT in Montenegro is 21%, but there are exceptions. It can be reduced or even zero. For example, VAT is not charged on the export of goods and services. A typical situation, a Russian freelancer, say a programmer or designer, comes to the country and provides services to foreign clients. In this case, he is considered an exporter of services, which means he does not pay VAT. That is, even though he may be a VAT payer, since all companies whose annual revenue exceeds 30,000 euros become VAT payers. So this freelancer may exceed that annual revenue threshold. He may become a VAT payer and he will have to submit monthly VAT reports. Well, his accountant will submit them, but at the same time, he will not actually pay VAT. That is, in all the reports, it will state the amount, the revenue for the reporting period. But at the same time, this revenue amount is not subject to VAT. Accordingly, the rate is zero. There are also reduced rates. So, as we just discussed, there is the standard 21% rate, there is a zero rate, and there is also a reduced rate 7%. For example, you pay 7% when renting out real estate on a daily basis. If, for example, your company owns some residential property, you rent it out and pay 7%. By the way, for long-term rentals of real estate, this is also interesting. The tax rate is 0%. So, if you rent out for a short term, you earn a bit more, but you pay 7% VAT. But if you want to rent out the same residential property for long term, the rate is 0%. By the way, this is quite interesting information for those who own real estate through a company and are considering the best way to rent it out. Moving on, corporate income tax. It is differentiated. Small businesses pay less, large ones pay more. I also think this is fair. If your annual profit, not revenue, but profit does not exceed 100,000 euros, you pay 9%. If it exceeds that amount, then on the portion that exceeds it, you pay 12%. If the profit is more than 1.5 million, then it's already 15%. What else is there? Tax on receiving dividends. If your company has somehow earned money in Montenegro, as in most other countries, you can't just take it and transfer it to your personal account. You can withdraw them either as salary or as dividends, and accordingly they are subject to the respective tax. The 15% dividend tax is not applied to the entire amount the company earned. Naturally, you can leave some funds for the development of the company and withdraw some as dividends. On the amounts you withdraw, it's 15%. A tax on a tax. There's also a very tiny tax which varies in different communities. This is the so-called Napolis tax. But overall, no one really pays much attention to it because it's truly negligible. Now, regarding the cost of accounting services. Our accounting service rates are published on our website. The link to the website is in the description of this video. You can go and take a look. I strongly recommend paying accountants exclusively in a transparent, official manner from the company's account to the company's account. Why? Because inspectors can ask, and often do ask, show us how this company paid you for your services. In recent years, I've had 2 inspections. To be honest, there aren't many inspectors in Montenegro, which is good in some ways and bad in others. Both inspections asked about the existence of a service contract with this company. That's why I advise everyone to sign this contract and have proof of payment showing that the company pays you for your services officially. In other words, not like you just show up and get paid under the table for your work. No, it should be through the company, to the company's account. In Montenegro, the situation is probably about evenly split. Half of the accountants, like me, work officially. All of our accounting is completely official, while the other half works under the table. Working under the table is very risky. It's better not to deal with such accounting. What should you pay attention to? Well, there are basically just a few typical violations when it comes to accounting. Of course, there could be something else. There could simply be some mistakes. But the most common issue is the failure to pay salary to the company director. This is a real problem. A lot of Russian accountants don't do this. Well, and not only Russians, by the way. Not issuing a work record book, which is required for calculating pension service, and paying the accountant under the table, which, I repeat, is risky if there's any inspection. How can you sign up for our accounting services? It's enough to just write to us in any messenger, WhatsApp, Viber, Telegram, or simply by email. All contact details are in the description of this video. All contact details are also on our website. In response, you will receive detailed terms and conditions for working with us. If the terms suit you, then send us a photo of your residence permit so we can prepare the documents. If your company was opened not by us but by someone else, then additionally send a photo of the director's passport and the company registration decision. Later we'll arrange to notarize the necessary documents and essentially agree on all further steps. That's all from me. Goodbye, everyone.